So, fun fact, did you know that there are nearly 300 different ways to make change for $1? This I did not know, but courtesy of good old ChatGPT, I was informed 300 ways to make $1, which sounds like a lot until you factor in Social Security. And there are over 500 different claiming strategies to consider for Social Security. And so, mind-blowing moment for me. But the decision you make on Social Security could impact your income for decades. So a little more important than how you make change for $1. So today on Next Chapter Living, Planning Your Retirement Story, our host, Steven Sabo, will help us cut through the confusion and make sense of when and how to take Social Security in a way that fits your unique retirement goals. Steven is a financial advisor with Executive Financial Group. And if you're nearing retirement or you just want to make smarter decisions about your financial future, this episode is a must listen. You can learn more or get personalized guidance by visiting executivefinancialgroup.com. Again, executivefinancialgroup.com. Steven, how are you? You're a newlywed. We're going to give a shout out to the wife and the wedding. Talk to us about that.
Yes. Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you for the introduction. And yes, I am. October 24th, we got married. And so, it's been going really well so far. Everything is great. We had an amazing day. It was beautiful. The weather was perfect. It turned out really great. It was chilly, but that's okay. The rain held off, and no major hiccups. So it was more than what we could ask for. It was really beautiful. Our friends, our family, we're all there and we just got to enjoy it. And it was a lot of fun, a lot of planning for what seemed like, it felt like it was 10 minutes long,
right.
But by the end of it, it was so much fun. And I'm glad that we did all the planning because everything, like I said, went off without a hitch. So. Really
I feel like that's a lesson for life, that the better you plan for something, the easier the day is. And I think the same can be true for retirement. If we prepare for it and we plan for it, then hopefully when we get to it, we can enjoy it, right? That's the goal.
I say that to my clients all the time. I know that, and we may be talking about some of that in some other episodes and stuff, but we talk about it all the time. If you take the time up front to plan, it's going to make your retirement life that much better because you're going to be less stressed about all these different questions and things that pop up. We've kind of already got a plan for them. So
right.
Beautiful segment.
Well, the hopeless romantic in me loves to hear happy wedding stories. So I'm glad to hear that your day was as beautiful as you hoped it would be. And please send pictures because I would love to see. I love to see all of it.
Yes,
I never get tired of wedding pictures. They make me happy.
Yes. I will definitely send some over.
Well, we're talking today about Social Security. And I have to say, I was a little caught off guard to learn that there are 500 different claiming strategies because I think Social Security, it's just the thing that when you turn 65 or 62 or 67 or 70, depending on when you do it. Other than that, I thought it was just something that, happened, and you learn that it's not as cut and dry as that. So how do you help clients weed through those 500 options and create an income plan for them in their retirement? Yeah,
one of the first things that we have to do or at least that we do whenever we're building a financial plan for somebody is that income plan. And at least for us, again, Social Security is kind of the first component of that income plan. We want to at least know what you have available to you at 62, at 65, at full retirement age, which might be 66 and a half or 67 and a half for some people. What are you entitled to at 70? And then we got to, from there, we're going to tweak that and say, okay, well, now what is your budget? So at least we know you have, whether or not you have a pension or anything like that, but we know that the Social Security is going to be coming in. That's taking care of a portion of that income. And, it really is dependent upon the clients and what their needs are as an income in retirement for us to be able to choose what strategy for Social Security we're going to use. Because like you said, there are so many different ones out there. There's 500 different claiming strategies. And so, it's going to work a little bit differently for every client, just depending on your age, your health, how long your parents lived. We ask all of these questions because we want to know and we want to get the best understanding that we can get about you so that that we know how to choose the strategies that are available to you.
Because it's not just a one size fits all. We say that all the time with retirement planning, that it has to be unique to you and your situation.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody's different, and the person that's next to you in your cubicle or whoever you work next to, whatever it may be, they're all going to have different needs. They have different lifestyles. Their bills are different. Their health is different, and so these are all factors that we have to take into consideration when building a financial plan and helping you choose a strategy for Social Security.
So Dave Ramsey, we all recognize the name. He was making headlines because he recently came out and said everyone should take Social Security starting at the age of 62, even though that could mean a reduction in benefits by up to 30%. And his reasoning was that if you take it and you're investing that money while you're still working, then you're going to get ahead. And I wanted to know, do you agree? Do you think that, 62 is the way to go if you're investing the money? How do you help somebody decide if it makes sense?
Yeah, it's hard for me to say that is the right move whenever you're investing the money. Obviously it could, right? Unless you have a bad investment advisor, and then you could be in the hole. So,
right.
But we do help a lot of our clients take Social Security at 62. And, again, it's going to be different for everybody, just depending on all those factors that we just talked about. But, we have a lot of people that take it at 62 because they want to retire. They feel like they're ready. And, whenever we sit down and we look at all the numbers and we say, hey, look, based on your budget and how much extra you're going to need and how much money you have saved and set aside for retirement, we can make it happen at 62. And then, we also want to consider, what are you giving up between taking it at 62 and say waiting until 67? Because then we're going to do a calculation to find out kind of that break even point when 67 makes sense for you. And if a lot of the time what we find whenever we do that for people is that break-even point might be in your later 70s or early 80s. And so at that point, again, depending on your longevity, all those different things, does it really make sense? We have found that as you get older, you tend to spend less money. You can do less things. It's not true for everybody, but, most people retire. They want to do all the fun stuff and get all that stuff out of their way because, obviously, naturally, as you get older, you can do less. Your body is not what it used to be anymore, and your mind and things like that. And so, we want to make sure that you're enjoying yourself while you can. And so, like I said, a lot of the time at 62, we're encouraging people, hey, if you can do it, why not? But it has to make sense financially, obviously. So.
And we're seeing more and more people choosing to work in retirement, even
That's
if it's
right.
part-time. And, that's for a plethora of reasons. They might do it because it's a sense of purpose. They still enjoy the social aspect of it. Some of it may be financial needs. But we also know that working while collecting Social Security before full retirement age can reduce your benefits. And we have to factor in things like the earnings test. Talk to us about what that is and how people can avoid unexpected surprises.
Sure. So, the earnings test, it's really just it determines how much of your Social Security is going to be withheld from you in retirement if you're working while collecting benefits. And there's two kind of factors to it, I guess. It only applies to people that are under full retirement age for Social Security that are still working and collecting a paycheck, W-2s, wages, self-employment income, anything like that. And again, if you're under that full retirement age, and there's kind of two, we'll say, limits for that. In the years prior to your full retirement age, there's a much smaller number of money that you can earn before they're going to start withholding some of that money from your Social Security. And for 2025, I believe that limit is around $22,000, just a hair over $22,000. And so if you make above that, they're going to withhold $1 in benefits for every $2 over the limit that you earn. So it's not a whole lot of money that you can earn, and they're going to take a little bit more from you away. Now, in the year that you reach full retirement, that number is, I believe it's about $59,520, something like that. And that's in the year that you're going to reach full retirement age. And if you go over that number, it's $1 for every 3 over that limit. So again, you can earn a little bit more, but they're still going to withhold it. And whenever they withhold it, you eventually will get it back. But at the time being, they're going to take it away from you. So,
Sure.
And then once you reach full retirement age, if you're still working and collecting Social Security, there is no limit after that. So that's kind of how the earnings test works.
And I know that we hear all the time that if you are able to wait until 70, you can increase your benefits by as much as 8% annually. But sometimes that requires a level of financial flexibility that not everybody has. How do you help bridge that gap to, help clients to decide if they can wait? Maybe they really, that 8% would make a huge difference on the other side. But man, 67 to 70, that's 3 long years. How can we bridge that gap? Do you have some strategies to talk through on that?
Yeah, there's, again, it's really going to just be dependent on the person and how much they have set aside. Sometimes, we have to give people unfortunate news that you're going to have to continue to work and you're going to have to wait until you can collect that because you just haven't saved enough. And so we never like doing that, obviously. But at the end of the day, I'm a financial advisor. I'm not a magician. And so I can't just make money appear out of nowhere. And if that's the only way that we're going to be able to get you to retire is by having to wait until you can collect that higher amount, then, unfortunately for some people, you're just going to have to wait. But other times, we can utilize the money that you have saved, maybe in savings accounts or retirement accounts that you can now access because you're above 59 and a half. So we might take a look at those, or if you just have other investment accounts, things like that, CDs, we might be able to kind of create your own Social Security, if you will, using some of that money that maybe lasts for 5 years or something like that. So if you need it, you're 65, but you're going to need to wait until 70 and you have this money set aside for, emergencies, or not your emergency money, but, extra retirement money. We might say, we're going to utilize this to create an income for you for this 5 years so that you can kind of bridge that gap until you get to age 70 to start taking it. So there's a number of different ways to do that. And again, it just is dependent upon who the person is and kind of what they have saved up.
I think back to my grandmother, and some of it's probably that it was rural Maine, and I think financial resources were probably limited in her generation.
Yeah.
But certainly, it used to be thought that Social Security was like this standalone thing. You got to your age 62, you retired, and Social Security was it. But that is not a reality really anymore, especially for this generation that's starting to retire. It really needs to be part of a larger, broader plan. Am I right?
That's right. Yeah. Very few clients that can still rely just on Social Security. And it's mainly because their budgets are small. Right.
Sure.
They've worked a lot of years, so they've paid into it. Maybe they make a decent amount from Social Security, but their budgets are also very small. They have no mortgage. They have no bills. Their bills are not that expensive. And so maybe they can survive on, and again, they might not do a whole lot outside of, kind of hanging out with their family and doing those things. They aren't big spenders, if you will, but we aren't seeing that a lot. And you're right. I mean, Social Security is part of a bigger plan these days. And again, back to the income planning, whenever we're putting a financial plan together for somebody to retire, the income plan is the first part of that. And again, I'll talk about the Social Security kind of being the first part of that.
Sure.
We at least know, okay, at this age, and this age, here's what you're eligible for. So if you're going to retire here, and let's say your budget is $5,000, and we know that your Social Security is going to cover $3,000. Well, now we need to make up that extra, and maybe you want an extra $2,000 a month for enjoying and doing those things. So now we need to make this up. Well, how are we going to create the rest of that income plan? From your investments, from your IRAs, from your Roths, your non-qualified accounts, your savings. What are we going to do to kind of bridge that gap? But for us, Social Security is always that first part of it. Is once we get that in there, then we know what we need from your investments, and so again, we don't see a whole lot of people these days that Social Security is going to cover it. But once in a while we do. We're still, some of my dad's older clients, they are okay. Again, they don't spend a whole lot. We're kind of in a rural area. And so, they have the old school mentality, and they just don't spend a lot as people, and their bills are low. They've lived in their house forever. So, like you said, it's really not a standalone thing anymore. or we see a lot of people that have to utilize, other parts of their retirement savings in order to create that income.
We hear in the news a lot the conversation that Social Security is going to run out of funding in, I think, 2036 they're talking, which is not that far away. That's 11 years from now, closing in on, just a decade. Yeah. What are you saying to clients that are sitting across from you? And that's a legitimate fear. I don't want to be 10 years into my retirement and suddenly there's a massive cut into what I thought was, something I could count on every month.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough because without knowing exactly if it's going to happen or not, we've kind of had this conversation in our country for a long time and nobody seems to want to deal with it or fix it. They might give a problem, but it just kind of pushes it down the road. We call it kick the can, if you will. They're kicking it on to the next administration to deal with so that they can blame each other back and forth. Will Social Security run out? There's a chance that it will, or it could, or your benefits could be cut. And, that's just something that we tell people, hey, look, we're going to have to cross that bridge if we ever get there. We have a plan in place. Here's what we can do. Here's how we could supplement. I think that if we got there as a country, I think that there would probably be more problems to deal with than just that. There's going to be wide scale upset people everywhere. And so, hopefully we won't ever get there. But, we do talk to people and say, hey, look, if there is a plan, we can do this. We can turn on this spigot, right? And kind of start the income from over here if we needed to, or we can adjust, or maybe you have to adjust how much you're spending, unfortunately. But, we'll cross that bridge because we don't want to do anything that's going to mess something up now for something that may never happen. So a lot of the times we're trying to alleviate the fear and just say, hey, look, we have a plan in place. We'll be able to take care of it, but let's not worry too much about it.
I think that's such a great reminder of why it's so important to have a financial advisor, somebody that's on your team that can look at things from a 30,000 foot view and sort of take some of the emotional aspects out of it. Because when it's your money and it's your retirement, it's very easy to latch onto it and become very emotional and make decisions from an emotional place, which might not be beneficial from a long-term perspective. And that's where a financial advisor can sit down and go, okay, I hear that concern, but we'll put XYZ in place, but let's not make rash decisions based on unknowns.
That's correct. Yeah. You a lot of the times when you're making emotional decisions in retirement, it's going to end up with a problem. And so we try and take the emotion out of it as much as we can. Obviously, it's human nature, but we want to at least say to them, look, this is why we are here. We're holding your hand through this. We're here for you. We're going to work through the problems that pop up. And if you're having that problem, I'm probably going to have that problem as well. So we'll work together as a team to figure out a solution.
Fair enough. Right. Well, real quick before we go, I just wanted to touch upon just a couple of other factors that people need to take into consideration, things like taxes and spousal support, and how should people factor those things in when they look at when and how to claim?
Yeah, that's a big thing. Again, most people that we see today, if they're a couple, and they come in together and they both have Social Security, we're going to work on, like you said, there are spousal benefits. So if it's, say, a husband and a wife, and let's say the wife didn't work outside of the home for that long. She did whenever she was younger. They had children, and then she was able to stay home, and her job was in charge of the children, in charge of the house. That's a job in and of itself. And so you don't get Social Security benefits for that. And so a lot of people don't know that you're entitled to spousal benefits, which may be up to half of your spouse's. So we might say, hey, look, you weren't planning on this, but now you can get, your Social Security was X. It was a much smaller amount, but did you know you're entitled to this? And so that's a big factor. Again, taxes, those are always a big factor whenever it comes into planning, especially for retirement and how we're going to take your Social Security. And then, again, your health, your family situation, how long did you live? How long were your parents around? Not how long did you live, but how long did your parents live? And, what's your health like right now? That's, again, those are all factors into taking your Social Security. And we want to look at each one of them because everything can have an impact.
So as we're hearing, when it comes to Social Security, the right choice is not just about numbers. There are so many factors that come into play, and it's about crafting a retirement story that fits your goals and your life. So if you're ready to write the next chapter in your personal story, head on over to executivefinancialgroup.com. Again, that's executivefinancialgroup.com, or you can pick up the phone at 724-283-2806. You can also find them on YouTube and Facebook. And as always, make sure you subscribe so that you never miss an episode where Steven is sharing all of this knowledge for anyone who is ready and willing to listen. Thank you, Steven. It's always a joy. And congratulations again on your big day.
Thanks a lot, Alyssa. I really appreciate it. And, thank you for the well wishes. We appreciate that.
We'll talk soon.
Yep. Talk soon.
The opinions expressed by Steven Sabo and guests on this podcast are their own and do not reflect the opinions of this podcast station. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Investments involve risk and unless otherwise stated are not guaranteed. Past performance cannot be used as an indicator to determine future results. Any strategies mentioned may not be suitable for everyone. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. Before acting on any information mentioned, please consult with a qualified tax or investment advisor to determine if it is suitable for your specific situation. This program is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information with regard to subject covered. Investment advisory services offered through Virtue Capital Management, LLC, VCM, a registered investment advisor. VCM and Executive Financial Group are independent of each other. Pennsylvania Insurance License number 670429. Any guarantees mentioned are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company and may be subject to caps, restrictions, fees, and surrender charges as described in the annuity contract. Steven Sabo and/or Executive Financial Group are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency.